She was used to the dance, the same predictable steps over and over again. A man notices her. He lingers a little too long in conversation. He leans forward when she speaks. He laughs at her jokes like they were written by a professional comedian. And in her mind, it's not just attention, it's confirmation. Confirmation that she holds the center of gravity in every room she walks into. Most men gave themselves away within seconds. They offered their presence before she even learned their last name. Their smiles were too eager, their eyes too obvious. But then there was him, the man who broke the pattern. He didn't lean in when she spoke. He didn't rush to fill the silence between sentences. He didn't hang on her words like they were pearls dropped from heaven. No, he simply looked at her, steady, calm, unshaken. And then, at the exact moment she expected him to close the gap, he walked away. Not rudely, not like someone storming out of a scene, but like a man who already had somewhere far more important to be. That was the moment she felt it. Something shift, a small crack in her perfect glass world. Because here was a man who didn't bend toward her orbit. A man who didn't seem affected by the subtle tricks she'd mastered. The smile, the tilt of the head, the slow blink meant to pull him closer. Instead, he left her with a strange ache, a question she didn't know how to answer. Why didn't he? She found herself replaying their brief interaction, not because it was special, but because it was unfinished. That's the first truth no one tells you about desire. Obsession is not built in the moments you're together. It's born in the moments you're apart. And this man understood that. He didn't try to be unforgettable. He simply lived in such a way that forgetting him wasn't an option. He didn't flood her with compliments. He offered none. He didn't fill her inbox. In fact, he didn't even open the door to it. Not because he was trying to play hard to get, but because he genuinely was hard to get. Not in arrogance, but in purpose. His attention wasn't something to be taken for granted. It was earned, and that was rare. See, most men think that pursuit is about more effort, more gifts, more presence. But in truth, the fastest way to devalue your presence is to give it too easily. And here's the thing. This man wasn't resisting her because of fear or insecurity. He simply had better things to do than orbit someone else's sun. While others were chasing beauty, he was chasing legacy. While others were waiting for her to reply, he was building something worth replying to. While others were tripping over themselves to be chosen, he was choosing himself. That kind of self-possession is rare, and women can sense it. It's not about being cold, it's about being whole. Because the truth is, a woman cannot fantasize about a man who is too available. There must be room for curiosity, for wonder, for imagination to stretch into the unknown. And when he didn't show up in the ways she expected, he gave her exactly that space. The space to wonder, the space to want. And just like that, the power shifted. At first, she told herself it didn't matter, that his absence was meaningless, that she wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of her attention. But why was she checking her phone a little more often? Why did she notice when he was online but not replying? Why was she waiting? Because uncertainty has a strange way of hijacking the mind. It doesn't feel like attraction at first. It feels like curiosity. But curiosity is a seed. And when watered with just enough mystery, it grows into something far stronger. He didn't overwhelm her with predictable patterns. No good morning texts every day, no hourly check-ins, no constant reminders that he was thinking of her. Instead, his presence came like weather, sometimes a warm ray of sunlight, brief and bright, other times, days of silence, leaving her to wonder when or if the warmth would return. Psychologists have a term for this: intermittent reinforcement. It's the most addictive pattern the human brain can encounter, not knowing when, or even if, the next reward is coming. Gambling machines run on it. So do the most addictive apps. And so, without meaning to, so did he. But here's the part that made it irresistible. It wasn't a calculated manipulation. It was simply the byproduct of his life. He wasn't withholding on purpose. He was just occupied. His silence wasn't a test. It was his normal. And because of that, it carried no bitterness, no resentment, only depth. When he appeared, he was fully there, grounded, present. Like a man who had stepped out of something important just long enough to give her his attention, and then would return to it just as quickly. It made her feel two things at once: special and replaceable. That contrast drove her wild, because deep down she was used to men who made her the center of their world. But with him, she wasn't even sure she was on the map, so she adjusted. She posted things she thought might catch his attention. She crafted replies designed to make him engage. And when he didn't, she tried again. Without knowing it, she had begun chasing. See, when you're the one in control, you can afford to be relaxed. But the moment you start wondering, the moment you start hoping, the game has already shifted. And the beauty of his approach was this. He wasn't trying to win her by making her feel small. He was making her feel alive. Because comfort is forgettable. But aliveness, that's addictive. He understood something most men never grasp. The more certain she feels, the more her mind rests. And the more her mind rests, the less she thinks about you. By keeping her in motion, mentally, emotionally, he became the loop her thoughts couldn't escape. She didn't know when she'd hear from him next. She didn't know where she stood. She didn't know if she was winning or losing his interest. And the brain hates not knowing. The first time she laughed around him, it wasn't because he told some flawless joke. It was because he noticed something in her no one else did. A small, unspoken detail she didn't even realize she was revealing. The first time she felt seen by him, it wasn't because he showered her with praise. It was because he looked at her like he was reading a page no one else had opened. And the first time she felt frustrated with him, it wasn't because he insulted her, but because he didn't give her the reaction she wanted. These moments weren't random, they were anchors. See, human beings don't attach to people, they attach to emotions. We don't fall in love with faces or words, we fall in love with the way someone makes us feel. And this man, he had a way of being present at the peaks. When she felt the most alive, he was there. When she felt seen, it was his eyes she met. When she felt uncertain, it was his silence she noticed. And by being there in those moments, he became part of them. Psychologists call this emotional anchoring, linking yourself to someone's strongest emotional states so that, over time, they cannot think of the feeling without thinking of you. The secret? He didn't force these moments. He didn't engineer drama. He simply lived in a way that created contrast. While other men offered constant validation, he offered rare connection. While others tried to comfort her out of discomfort, he let her sit with it. And in doing so, made her feel something deeper than comfort, growth. He was the first man who could walk away before she decided she wanted him to stay. The first man who could stay silent when she tried to provoke a reaction. The first man who wouldn't crumble when she withheld her approval. And that rewired something inside her, because now, when she thought of joy, he was there. When she thought of curiosity, he was there. When she thought of frustration, he was there too. He became not just a presence in her life, but the center of her inner conflict. And humans can't resist resolving inner conflict. It's in our nature. We are drawn to finish what's unfinished, to solve what's unsolved. So now she needed something from him. Clarity, closure, confirmation, anything. But he wasn't giving it. Not because he was cruel, not because he enjoyed watching her twist in uncertainty, but because he was busy being himself. The irony? The more she chased resolution, the more entangled she became, and slowly, without ever asking her to, she started working to earn his attention, his time, his energy, because she had realized something. Nothing about him was given for free. Not his words, not his presence, not even his gaze. And what's earned is always valued more than what's given. By now, it wasn't about him as a person anymore. It was about what he represented. He had become more than a name in her phone or a face she remembered. He had become a benchmark, a line drawn in her mind that every other man would now be measured against. When she met someone new, she noticed it. The eagerness, the quick replies, the way they bent toward her approval without her asking. And every time it happened, a quiet thought whispered inside her. He wouldn't do that. She didn't mean it as a compliment, she meant it as a fact, an unshakable truth. See, most men live in a world of reactions. They move according to what she does. She smiles. They approach. She pulls back. They chase. She gives attention. They lean in. But he lived in a world of standards, not rules he imposed on others, but principles he imposed on himself. And the thing about a man like that is, you can't buy his presence with beauty. You can't win his respect with charm. You can't hold his focus with games. If you wanted to stand in his world, you had to rise to meet it. That's why he never feared losing her, or anyone for that matter, because he had already found something far more valuable, himself. And that self-possession was magnetic. He didn't need to prove his worth through pursuit. He didn't need to make her feel small to feel tall. He didn't need to play games to create desire. He was the game, the man she could never quite predict, the man whose approval wasn't guaranteed, the man who could give her his attention one moment and then disappear into his own mission the next, not out of cruelty, but out of commitment to something bigger than her. And when a woman feels that, when she realizes you have a purpose that doesn't revolve around her, two things happen. First, she respects you, because self-control is rare, and in a world full of men desperate for her attention, you've shown that you value your own more. Second, she chases you, not because you're playing some manipulative role, but because she wants to feel what it's like to be close to a man who is whole without her. In the end, she had a choice: to rise into the version of herself who could stand beside a man like that, or to keep seeking comfort in men who offered their presence like a discount sale, abundant, easy, forgettable. She knew which choice excited her, because comfort can be found anywhere, but aliveness, the fire of being next to someone unshaken, that's rare, and rare things are worth pursuing.